talk about three aspects of qualitative research. I'm going to talk about our definition, our new definition of first generation, or our degrees of first generation, a little bit about some data we collected on the immersive experiences, and the student social network analysis. We also work on rural coding. We're looking at a coding scheme that would better explain the areas that the students come from with respect to their success. And then we're also looking at social network analysis for the whole network, but I've reported on them in the past, so I'm going to stick to these other areas today. The data that I'm going to talk about comes from the student survey that we give. We've given it now for 3 years. We gave it to the pilot students, and then we gave it to the 2019 and 2019 and 2020 immersive experience students. So the survey has 3 parts. It talks about first their background, where did they come from, what's their family background. It talks about the influencers, what influenced them to go to college and study STEM, and then it talks about, it asks a few questions about their summer immersive experience, and then we have that one question about the social network, what social networks are they forming. So we've administered this, as I said, for 3 years now. We started by doing interviews of the pilot students and then developed a survey based on the interviews. We've sent it out to 122 students and we've had 55 respond, so that's about a 45% response rate, which is fairly good. And so the first thing I want to talk about. Sure. Okay, so we had a total of 55 out of 122 students respond to the survey, which was 45%. These were all students who attended the immersive experiences in the summer. Okay, so this is our group that we're talking about. And so what we were looking at in our question was first to better define what it meant to be first generation. Of course, we know the traditional definition is your first generation if neither of your parents graduated from college. But that isn't very descriptive, because maybe your parent went to college but just didn't graduate, or maybe somebody who had a lot of influence in your life went to college, but your parents did not, maybe your grandparents or your siblings. So this is how we have defined it. First of all, level 0 would be one or both of the parents graduated. So these are not considered first generation students. But then level 1 would be that the parents or guardians attended some college. And level 2 would be siblings attended or completed, parents did not attend. Level 3 is extended family members like grandparents, aunts or uncles, cousins, attended or completed college, parents or siblings did not. And then level 4 is no one in the immediate family. So sometimes when we think about first generation, we think of those level 4 students, like they don't know anybody, nobody in their family went to college. But when we looked at these 55 students, you can see the levels of first generation. First of all, that bigger bar were students who attended our immersive experiences, but they did have a parent who graduated, so they weren't really considered first gen. Then you can see going down the level 1, we had 16 students, and then 10, and then 7, then 4. So we really only had 4 of these students who were really, we felt would be most at risk. And so we wanted to kind of distinguish these levels, and then as the years go on, look at them to see if there's any difference in the way our interventions affected these students, and if it's possible, do we need to do more or different interventions with these students who are at the highest levels of first generationness or whatever. So that's what we were looking at in that idea. So you can see the breakdown of the students that have been in our program so far. Okay, then we asked some questions about what actually influenced you. And so we separated these students into the ones from our study that were first generation and the ones that were not. Okay, so we can also separate them into the different degrees, but just for this slide, I just did first generation and those who were not. So you can see that when we asked students what influenced them to attend college, it was clear that parents and teachers played the biggest role for both groups. However, first generation students, classes and for first generation students, classes and friends played a larger role than for their non first generation counterparts. Then when we talked about internal factors that influence them, again, the answers were pretty similar. However, the desire for a good income and positive associations with college were higher for students whose parents had already graduated from college. So we can see a little bit of difference there, but not as much as when we look at the external factors. Okay. For the next slide, we looked at external and internal factors that encourage them into and going into STEM. And so overall, more students indicated that teachers and classes influenced their decision to major in STEM. So it was clear for the first generation students, teachers and clubs played a much larger role than they did for students whose parents went to college. So you can see that it for the bar, I don't know, you can't see my cursor maybe, but for teacher, the third bar is over. You can see that the first generation students rated their teacher as being much or more of the first generation students, a bigger percentage rated their teacher as being more important in their decision. So to me, what we always want to look at too is what are we doing through First STEM? We're trying to reach the students, of course, but what are we doing to reach the teachers who are the influencers of these students? And so that has an implication on what kind of programs we're doing, and should we be reaching out more to teachers? Should we be doing more to influence clubs in different schools and things like that through our network if these are big influencers? For the internal influencers, the first generation students were less influenced by a desire for a good income. So that's a little bit less. Still 51% of the first generation students said that was an internal influencer, but it's possible that wasn't as big as the ones with the parents who went to college, because they just didn't know the types of jobs and the incomes that could be possible with a STEM career. Okay, all right, so then the next, we started looking at the programmatic aspects of the immersive experiences. And of course, I know evaluation does the pre and post survey with the immersive students as well. This is a little bit after the fact. We give this survey after they're already in college, and it's middle of their first semester in college when they get this survey, so they have time to think back on it. And so we asked them what STEM related programmatic aspects caused you would like to continue in STEM, and what non-STEM programmatic aspect encouraged you to continue to pursue STEM. So in other words, what's working in these programs during the summer that's helping you. And so the STEM related activities or aspects that we talked about were being exposed to new STEM technology, conducting research, doing activities related to the major, doing hands-on experiences, learning about STEM jobs, visiting STEM companies. And so nearly 90% of the participants indicated that conducting research and doing hands-on experiences were very encouraging. And then learning about STEM jobs and opportunities was an encouraging factor for nearly 80% of the students. Visiting STEM-based companies was rated overall at 48%. 48% of the students said that this was encouraging to them. But we think that this might have been a little bit lower because not every site had a not every immersive experience site included this as part of their programming. And in the last year, that rating went down, and I think it was because it was virtual. So I don't know exactly how it was implemented during the virtual activities. So then we moved on to non-STEM related aspects of the program, like being with students with the same interest, or doing after hours fun activities, learning about the campus, making friends, working in a team environment, learning skills that they could use in college, or meeting faculty. And they said, or 87% said learning skills that they, no, sorry, 94% said learning skills that they could use in college was very important. And then being with students of the same interest and meeting faculty was also rated at 87% of the students rated that as one of the encouraging factors. And then in year 2, now these different bars are the different years, but then the blue bar is the overall. So in year 2, you can see that 100% of the participants identified meeting faculty as an aspect that would encourage them to pursue STEM. So that was a very important aspect. And then working in a team environment was also highly rated. And the aspect of doing after hours fun activities and learning about the campus were both rated around 70%, but they fluctuated over the years. And again, this was affected by the online aspects of, again, I'm not privy to exactly how all of the immersive sites went virtual this year. So these fun activities, I don't know how they were implemented. I'm sure that they did something. We also asked the question on the flip side, which said, did any of these activities discourage you? And there was really only one year that one of the factors stood out, and that was conducting research. In year 1, 21% of the students said that they felt conducting research may have been a deterrent to them continuing in STEM. So, but that did not play out then in the other years. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, and there's more, this is just a little snippet of what is in the white papers. And the white papers are 2 white papers that are attached to the agenda. So you could read more about the breakdown. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is that we are starting the social network analysis for the student data. This is not the full network. This is just the students who have answered the student survey and given us how their network is building. So the very first part of it is just a look at the overall. So you can see that the network in 2019, which was the first year we gave that question on the student survey, is smaller than the network in 2020. And then we have lots of ways that we want to analyze this data. We want to first break it down by, of these dots that you're seeing, which are actual students and which are faculty members or other people from organizations, so we can distinguish, because they can name whoever they want. They name who they're connected to in the first 2 network. And so they can say a faculty member, they could say somebody from High Rocks, they could say, you know, a teacher in K-12, so they could name anybody. So we want to first break it down into students and non-students to see. And then we can also talk about what academic organizations they're from, what schools are they from, and break it down to see if we have these intercollegiate networks growing. So those are the kind of things that we're going to look at in the future. So that's basically it. The last slide I have here is the things that we've been working on. We did submit to the American Evaluation Association annual conference. We presented there with Kim Cowley, Caitlin's colleague there. And then we have published, or sorry, not published yet, I shouldn't say. We have submitted a paper with Kim as well to the International Journal of STEM Education. We're waiting to hear back from that. We have another paper in preparation on for the Journal of Rural Education, and we have these 2 white papers that we just drafted and submitted to you all. So that's it for me.
Wow, Margie, just wow. That is incredible.
I'm trying to stop my share. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Erica. You're always so positive. That's why I love you. I've loved you for years.
The chat has been blowing up too. It's really exciting. It makes people want to talk about it, and that is like fantastic. Oh yeah.
Michelle asked a really good question. Marjorie, we do have more students here than normal. Can you define what a white paper is for everybody in the meeting, including students and maybe the rest of us who have been out of that world for a minute?
Sure. Well, I don't really know the exact definition of a white paper, but it's sort of like a small summary paper of what the research is. It's not big enough to be like a journal article, but it has the details of, you know, what you've done in your research and a few of the initial findings.
And it's shared within the network, but maybe not published in a journal.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just for internal sharing usually.
It can lead to a journal article. It's almost like the first rough draft that doesn't have all the details in it.
Or, I mean, in some cases, organizations ask for white papers to use for decision making. They might have details you wouldn't necessarily even think about publishing, you know, in their current state, but it's to help you do some decision-based or evidence-based decision making. National Science Foundation asks for them a lot.
Margie, Josiah.
Marjorie, I'd love to invite you to just take a look at, sorry, I'm on the satellite internet. I'm going to keep talking because I'm not trying to interrupt. If you would take a look at the chat and respond to just some of the comments there, particularly a comment from Josiah. You can talk about my comment if you want to, but I'd just love to have your reaction to some of those comments there in the chat.
You're muted though, Margie. You can just stay unmuted.
Okay. You should email.
Somebody help Margie understand the content.
Yeah. Maybe you could just ask Josiah. It says, okay, from Gay. Gay, what are you talking about?
Or Josiah, you can just say what you're thinking.
You're Josiah, yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, I had the question. Well, you know, I found some of the data kind of interesting, and I do want to like share it a little bit. I'm considering it. I might not even like actually take the extra step to share it on social media. But yeah, I mean, I was just asking like, yeah, I mean, if I had the permission to, you know, would I be able to actually share some of this information if I wanted to?
I think that would be a question for Gay, maybe, because Gay is the PI of the research. Can you hear me, Gay?
Right, but you did the IRB for the social network analysis stuff and these surveys.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem sharing it because we're sharing it in aggregate. We said we would share it, right?
I don't think there is. I don't think there should be. I just couldn't remember if you'd put anything weird in there.
No, I don't think so.
If you don't remember anything weird, we're good.
Yeah. We would love to publish this eventually. And we don't have any names in there, you know, right now or anything like that. So I think it would be, and you have access to the white papers. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I put in the chat that what you were interested in, I thought, was the 18 people who actually weren't first gen, and having that be the biggest story we tell the world from this data might not be the right thing to tell the world right now. It's important, and we're working to correct that. But also the fact that so many students, 55%, didn't respond, makes me really worried, because knowing my own first gen students, they were probably the ones who didn't respond in larger numbers. Sure. So I would just caution you to vet it with Margie and Gay before you send it out.
I think that because we're qualitative, I mean, Caitlin, you can shake your head if you think 45% is a good response rate. What do you think? No?
It's not great,
okay.
But from an evaluation perspective, we say, we will confess, we will admit what our response rate was. And we will ask readers to take that into account when they review what we say. So you're being transparent about what the limitations are, but you know, data are suggestive. They're not, you know, they're not leading you to truth rate that are there. That's not how it works. It is a snapshot of student perspectives at that time. So I think as long as you caveat it, it's.
Well, and if you compare it to the response rate for the survey from the adults, it's much better than that. So we've sent a social network analysis survey out this year, I think to 600, and we had 44 respond. So it's much better than we have the adults. But I don't think, you know, with talking to some people, that 600 are not really engaged in the network. That's just how many people you had on your mailing list at some point that we got. We also do the students after the fact. We don't have them captive audience like evaluation does to do the pre-post. So we just send them this, and we've tried to follow up with the people who didn't respond and still don't get, we've tried to interview and do focus groups with the people who don't respond and haven't gotten any response. So we will still continue to do that, try to do